How's it going, YouTube? Coming in today with another video, and today, as with the brand new, is going to be how to deck build in 2024, and this is going to be more so about how I build tier limit, and hopefully you can at least employ some of these strategies into your own deck building. I know it's a little bit darker on my camera today. It's just a very stormy day, and this is the kind of vibe that I'm going for. So, I mean, it's been pretty relaxing. I just worked a few 12-hour days. So actually having a moment to sit down and make a new video is a lot of fun. Definitely go ahead and check out my new TikTok down below in the description. It's been a lot of fun already being able to make some things that are just like the short Yu-Gi-Oh trivia videos. I love trivia, it's so much fun, so I hope you enjoy them as well. So kind of looking today at what I did at the regional, got third place, and why I played the cards that I did, and certain adjustments that I'd make moving forward that I just think about whenever I go through my deck before an event and after an event, because even if you win a game, there's still moments where you should sit down and figure out if you could have won faster. And this is the same thing where even if you do well in an event, you should probably still sit down and look at your deck list and feel like, hey, you know, this card wasn't that good, so maybe we swap it out for this next time. If you heard my deck profile, the only card I actually really used to my side deck the entire event was just Crime. The other cards, I saw a couple of them, but they literally didn't matter when I saw them at all. So like, yes, I would keep a lot of them still because they're still going to be really impactful versus different matchups. And even like Dark Ruler, I didn't see Melodious at all, but if I did, this would have been really helpful. But Prime was like the only card that actually mattered all day, which is pretty crazy. We'll talk about more of the side and the extra, but let's go over like the main deck first. So I'm playing 43 cards. I know a lot of people want to see like 40, but at the same time, whenever you're playing something like 43 cards, I think that it's really important to note that a lot of times you're trying to not see certain bricks a lot in your opening hand. Like if you play 40, you're at risk of seeing like double Mally, and you don't want to see that. You're at risk of seeing your Shuffler, you're at risk of seeing your Beast, and a lot of things that you just don't want to see in your hand, right? Like I would love to see a Solic in my hand paired with like a Grief or a Foolish Burial, but I do not want to see double Solic, right? Or even like Trivi. So these are things that you really got to think about in your deck building. So I think putting the number over 40 is definitely really smart to make sure that your mills are really optimal, but you're also just not seeing your bricks as much. I did end up main decking the Bishals, and I thought this was really smart. My number one problem in this deck obviously is running into things like Shifter, so you really have to be really mindful of that. So one of the great ways you can play through Shifter is being able to like normal zone a monster, Bishal out the Shifter from the graveyard, swing in for some damage, link off someone like an SP, and then pass it over, which is still really nice. This happened at the regional. I did that exactly. I normal the Rhino, I summoned a Druid Swarm, I swung over, I made an IP activate Scream pass. So when it was my opponent's turn and Shifter was off, I'm able to go ahead and use the tier cache out of my hand. When I revealed the tier cache, my opponent chained the second Shifter they just drew, which was super unfortunate, but then I was able to go ahead and stop them on their normal summon because I was able to make the SP. They weren't really able to do a whole lot about it. They had to pass back, and then I was able to kill from there. So definitely very interesting. I feel like these cards definitely help out a lot being level 6s as well. You might be saying like, well, we're in fire format, why did you play Bishals? But like Bishals still come up quite a bit, and especially being able to get rid of things like IP is really nice as well. So just another thing to think about. Another thing they typically do in that deck is go like Celine to revive something like the Diabell Star. So it's really niche and it probably won't come out, but it's just another thing that you can stop, right? So there are applications to these cards, and they're still pretty solid. I'm even using this as a way to just send it to the graveyard and just out something too. Of course, not under Shifter, but still really solid. I like this card a lot. The next thing here is talking more so about like my non-engine. So playing like 3 Tactics. Tactics is a card that I was really wanting to play because you're already playing so many things like your Inseti, you're playing the field spell, you are trying to resolve a Shiren, whether or not they ash this, they ash this, they ash this. If they droll you on resolution, this being able to give you so many different options going second, as well as if you are going first and they do hand trap you, this is just insane. I like this a lot. Moving forward though, I did get rid of things like Serpent. I don't really think that it's as relevant anymore. When we had the mill 5 and you had a lot more access to be able to mill that, it was a lot better. But now that you need for sure things to hit, I do definitely want to see like the Rhino and Scream. I cut Scream down to 2 from 3 though. I do think that it's important to just run 2 instead of 3 because again, you want to be able to optimize a deck like this with optimal mills, but also not being able to brick as much. And you don't want to be able to see like the same things over and over. So playing 2 Scream has always been like the perfect ratio for me. Back when we had full power tier, we only played 1. And then I know the previous format, even with the Guido and Kelbeck, we played the 3, but right now 2 just feels really comfortable. You just want to have them more as options rather than something that you just have to see. Talking more so about how this all works with your side deck though, Bell is really impactful right now. I think that it's really good. If you're really afraid of getting Dragonshield, you can put them in. If you're really afraid of like the branded matchup, they can be pretty helpful unless they make the Sanctifier in their draw phase, which happened to me, which is why I lost game 2 and then I won game 3 against branded. Bell is also just generically very good against things like Gastonado, Wanted, and what have you. It just comes up quite a bit. The cross out here too for Shifter, you don't have to do this because there's a 33% chance that you see this and there's a 33% chance that they see this. There's also this awkward position where you can draw the Shifter and the cross out, which only happened to me one time in 2 events, so I'm not really worried about it. I do think cross out's still worth it though. You can always go ahead and just banish a talent, or you can banish like a rate saw. That's actually come up for me, which was really funny. You can even get rid of things like Call by the Grave. You can stop a Bestial. So it's really nice to have a card like this. It comes in when I'm going first. I don't ever put it in going second. Usually I just put in Crime, but if I'm afraid of Shifter, then I will. I put against a couple Vanquish Souls, so I definitely put in Cross out just in anticipation of them potentially having a Shifter. Same thing against like Tenpai, which I think is really important to have that preconceived notion of like, okay, this deck probably plays Shifter. I've seen it before, so let's go ahead and just decide it and make sure that we have it. The other thing too, moving forward into the next format, we do have the Lightning Storm and the Duster as an option as well for Bell. These are going to be really impactful, so I'll probably bump Lightning Storm up another one. And this is just being proactive about what we're seeing in the new set, right? We have battles right now, so Bell is probably gonna be pretty popular at the next regional I go to, which is Indy on Sunday. The other thing too is my only losses in 2 events have been Tenpai, so I'm actually going to be playing Rise to full height. I'm gonna side 3 this. I don't exactly know how I'm going to configure my side deck yet. I think that I'll probably end up taking out the Imperiums and putting these in instead. We'll have to see, but I do want to play 3 of this card. I think Tenpai is really ridiculous sometimes when you're playing against it and you just kind of lose. So I want to make sure that I have the best chance to be able to see this card. Maybe I cut it down because you can just Beatrice to it, but you don't always get there through a lot of the hand traps that they have. So being able to just like mill one, especially at 3, is pretty high. So I'll probably just put this in anyway. I haven't really struggled against anything as far as the meta goes. Snake can be here or there, but like Tenpai for some reason has been giving me a huge problem, so I'm definitely going to be putting in the Rise to full height to be able to mitigate that problem. And this is where you kind of look at your side deck objectively, because like you have to realize that your main deck should be able to fight like 90% of the games that you have. You play most of your games post side, but like if your main deck isn't configured right, then you're auto losing game 1 at least, and then you're just on the back foot for game 2 and 3, which isn't something you definitely want to do. So if you can configure your main deck to work a lot better to be able to win those game 1s, your side deck should just be there to help you clear game 2 or 3, which I think, in my opinion, is a different way to look at it than how people really kind of rely on their side deck to pull them through a game. I don't really feel like that's a really efficient way of looking at it, because your side deck is there to help you, but it shouldn't be there to be like, all right, I need this card or I just lose. And it's like that in certain scenarios, but even when I'm at a regional and the one I just got 3rd at, again, I didn't really need anything but Crime for the most part. It's just because I'm already main decking things like Bestials because I know that they're going to help me out. I'm already main decking things like Tactics. I'm maining the Called by the Grave because I know I have a problem with Shifter. And even like Ash, right? Like Ash is a problem. So this is something where I do heavily believe that you have to look at your main deck a lot better before your side deck and kind of go in sequence. If you look at my old deck building videos, I do something called reverse engineering, where I'll put all of my non-engine before my main deck in, so I know exactly what I want to play. So like if I know for a fact I want to play Talent, I'm just going to open up my deck list with Talent because this is a card that I 100% want to play. And then I'm going to add the Bestials because these are cards that I want to play. And then I'll go and add like a Call by. And then I'll be like, all right, cool. Now that like these are done, what is my main deck looking like, right? Because I'm not going to play hand traps in my main deck, at least not right now. So I'm going to start adding in my Rhinos, my tier caches, my names, and then move on from there to like planets and terraforming, right? So you kind of move backwards in a sense with your deck building, which I think is really important because a lot of people put too much main deck engine in and then there's not enough room for the non-engine. And they're like, well, I can't fit these cards that I really want to play. The reason a lot of times is because you don't start with those cards and you're trying to fit your non-engine around your main deck, where sometimes you can fit your main deck around your non-engine, because a lot of times this is how we find new ratios in a deck, is that you are so focused that you have to run a certain amount of cards in the main deck. Like, a lot of people were like, oh my god, you have to run 3 Scream. If you run like 2 Scream, you're bad. But you find out that you only really needed the 2, which I think is really important. So try that next time. Start with your non-engine and then move to your main deck engine, which I think is really important, because at that point you actually get a better sense of what you need and what you don't, because some things you can really trim down on. Another thing too, in my extra deck, I always felt like my end boards were lacking as far as what I could do with them. Ending on like an SP never really felt that great, and a lot of times I would end on like a sprint, but I never really wanted to do that. So I added in the IP, and I realized that a lot of my siding patterns was always going to be against the decks where I was kind of scared, right? Against things like Pearly even, where I was like, oh, I have to have these XC's Encores or I'm gonna lose. But then you put in things like Goddess, and you just clean up so much room in your sideboard. So definitely go ahead and take a better look at your deck. Think about the things that can be cut and start going from there, because not everything you play is actually mandatory. And if you play without something and you figure out that it is, then cut something else and try it again. Because I'll tell you right now, even when I'm streaming and I'm putting everything in a deck list, I have people that are just like, oh, you forgot this, you forgot this. And I'm like, we're just gonna test without it, and we're gonna see how big of a deal it actually is. It's like when someone comes back from the ban list and everyone's like, oh my god, this is gonna be the craziest thing in the world, and then we're like, oh, it wasn't, right? And I feel like that's the same thing with deck building, where people are like so hard stuck on certain cards and certain ratios that you just have to play. But I was talking with Craig about this the other day, and shout outs to Miguel as well. They were talking about Kashtira, and Kashtira, at least the Heat Soul variant, hasn't really done a whole lot lately. And so Miguel looked at Craig and he goes, clearly we have to change the way that we're doing this, because if this is the same build that most people are playing and no one's really converting, this has to be incorrect. There has to be a different way of going about this. And I 110% agree. I think that's one of the smartest things that you can realize in your deck building. And the other thing too, I'm going to leave you with this. If you don't enjoy the deck that you're playing, now you have to play a good deck if you want to do like a regional or a YCS. If you're playing at a local, then sure, play whatever you want. But if you want to do well at a regional, a YCS, nationals, half the battle is picking a top deck that you enjoy. If you hate the deck, you're gonna have a horrible time and you're gonna misplay like crazy, I guarantee it. If you find a deck that you can genuinely stand behind, it's gonna do a world of difference. And I highly recommend that you look into that, because even me on tier might not be the craziest deck right now, but I just got third in snake format with tier, and one of the most heavy shifter formats we've seen in a really long time. And it's just because of the way that, you know, I really enjoy playing the deck and I catered it to the format. And I think that these are things that, you know, a lot of people need to sit down and reevaluate. And, you know, I used to think that I was good at deck building before, and I really had to sit down and look and be like, you know what? I'm not the best at this. And I had to reach out and figure out why things were good and why things were bad. And I'm sharing what I've learned so far in my journey with you all. And I hope that you all can share below what you've learned as well. I appreciate all of you. I hope you all have a great day. Now go out and top that event. I appreciate it. Later.